massive sonic boom just rocked Canada and the United States, and for a terrifying few minutes, nobody knew what it was. Scientists initially feared it could have been a bomb. On the evening of March 3rd, just after 9:10 at night, a deep, violent explosion shook buildings across British Columbia's lower mainland and into Washington state. Windows rattled, walls shook, car alarms went off. People ran outside expecting to see smoke, fire, something. Instead, they saw two brilliant flashes of light that turned the night sky bright as day. This was not an earthquake. This was not a military strike. This was a rock from outer space slamming into our atmosphere at roughly 100 times the speed of sound. And what scientists are saying about it should make all of us pay a lot more attention to what is happening above our heads. Let me tell you exactly what happened, because the details of this event are absolutely wild. It was a quiet Tuesday night across the Vancouver metro area. Around 9:10 in the evening, security cameras across the region captured something extraordinary. The sky suddenly lit up with two intense flashes. Seconds later, a deep, bone-rattling boom rolled across the landscape. Then another one. People from North Vancouver to Surrey to Chilliwack to Abbotsford to Richmond, and even across the border into Washington state, all reported hearing the same thing. A sound so powerful, so intense, that thousands of people immediately assumed something had exploded nearby. Or worse. One resident in North Vancouver described the moment to Global News. He said he and his fiancée were in the kitchen when they heard a tremendous bang. Their sliding glass door started shaking violently in its frame, 2 or 3 hard shakes, and then it just stopped. They looked at each other and said, "Did you hear that?" Another resident in Surrey thought one of her kids had fallen out of bed. A man at a gathering in Vancouver described it as sounding like a massive plane moving incredibly fast across the sky. And everyone at the party just froze and looked at each other. A woman in Vancouver said she was convinced it was an earthquake because the sound rumbled and seemed to come from everywhere at once. And here is one that really shows how intense this was. One person who spoke to local media said they had been in Puerto Vallarta during the cartel war, and the boom triggered them because it sounded exactly like the explosions they heard during that experience. This was not a small event. The shock wave was so powerful that it was actually picked up by seismographs, the instruments designed to detect earthquakes. That is how much energy this thing released when it hit our atmosphere. So what was it? Scientists have confirmed that it was a bolide. Now, most people have heard the word meteor before. A meteor is what we call a space rock when it enters Earth's atmosphere and burns up, creating that streak of light we sometimes see in the night sky, a shooting star. A bolide is basically the big brother of a regular meteor. It is an extremely bright meteor, significantly larger and faster than normal, that explodes in the atmosphere with enough force to create a sonic boom and visible flashes of light. And the one that exploded over Vancouver on March 3rd was a significant one. Michael Unger, the director of programming at the H.R. Macmillan Space Center in Vancouver, confirmed the event. He said his email started blowing up as reports flooded in from across the region. He explained that our planet encounters rocky objects from space constantly. Most of them are tiny and just leave a brief streak across the sky during meteor showers. But this one was different. What made this event rare, he said, is that it created a sonic boom over a densely populated area. That almost never happens. Aaron Boley, a professor in the Department of Physics and Astronomy at the University of British Columbia, provided more detail. He said the object was likely somewhere between 10 centimeters and 1 meter in size. But given the intensity of the boom and the brightness of the flashes, it was more likely closer to a meter. He explained that bolides that penetrate this deep into the atmosphere only happen about once a week worldwide. So to have one explode directly over a metropolitan area of more than 2.5 million people is genuinely extraordinary. NASA weighed in as well, confirming the meteor had been traveling at approximately 100 times the speed of sound when it entered the atmosphere. At that velocity, the air in front of the object cannot get out of the way fast enough and compresses violently, creating a shock wave that expands outward in every direction. That is the sonic boom that people heard and felt across hundreds of miles. If you are finding this as mind-blowing as I did, do me a favor and hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. I put a lot of research into these videos, and your support really does help me keep going. Now here is where this story starts to get a little more unsettling, because the Vancouver bolide, as dramatic as it was essentially harmless. It broke apart high in the atmosphere. No significant debris hit the ground. No one was injured, but scientists are using this event as a very loud wake-up call, literally, about what happens when these objects are bigger. The last truly dangerous meteor event took place over Chelyabinsk, Russia, on February 15, 2013. And what happened there should terrify anyone who thinks space rocks are just a cool curiosity. On that morning, a small asteroid roughly 20 meters across, about the size of a 6-story building, entered the atmosphere over the Chelyabinsk region at nearly 19 kilometers per second. That is over 40,000 miles per hour. The asteroid exploded in what scientists call an airburst at an altitude of about 14 miles, and the explosion released energy equivalent to roughly 440,000 tons of TNT. For context, that is about 30 times more energy than the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima. The flash was briefly brighter than the sun and was visible from 60 miles away. Then came the shockwave. It took a few minutes to reach the ground, and when it did, it was devastating. Windows shattered across 6 cities. Over 7,200 buildings were damaged, including more than 6,000 apartment blocks, nearly 300 medical facilities, over 700 schools and universities, and more than 100 cultural organizations. Approximately 1,500 people were injured seriously enough to seek medical treatment, almost all of them from flying glass. More than 180 people reported eye pain from the intense flash, and 20 people suffered ultraviolet-type burns similar to severe sunburn. A roof at a zinc factory collapsed. In a region where temperatures were negative 15 degrees Celsius, residents whose windows were blown out scrambled to cover the openings before they froze. The total damage to buildings alone was estimated at over $33 million. And here's the part that keeps scientists awake at night. Nobody saw it coming. The Chelyabinsk asteroid was completely undetected before it hit. It approached from the direction of the sun, where telescopes cannot see, and the first anyone knew about it was when it was already exploding in the sky. There was no warning, no alarm, no time to prepare, nothing. The Vancouver bolide was tiny by comparison, probably less than a meter across, compared to 20 meters for Chelyabinsk, but the principle is exactly the same. A rock hurtling through space at tens of thousands of miles per hour with zero warning. The only difference is the size, and with size comes exponentially more destructive energy. This is why scientists are pushing so hard for better detection systems. Just a few weeks before the Vancouver event, on February 14, NASA's acting planetary defense officer, Kelly Fast, presented data at the American Association for the Advancement of Science annual meeting in Phoenix. And what she said was alarming. She told the audience that there are an estimated 25,000 near-Earth asteroids larger than 140 meters in diameter. These are objects big enough to cause regional devastation if they hit a populated area. Of those 25,000, only about 10,000 have been found and cataloged. That leaves roughly 15,000 undetected asteroids of that size still out there, somewhere in the solar system. She told the conference that this gap in detection is the thing that keeps her up at night. Now, 140 meters is obviously much, much larger than what hit Vancouver. But consider this. The Chelyabinsk asteroid was only 20 meters, and it injured 1,500 people and damaged over 7,000 buildings. Imagine what a 140-meter asteroid would do. And right now, we have no idea where 60% of them are. NASA is working on closing this gap. Their next-generation asteroid hunting telescope, called NEO Surveyor, is being designed specifically to detect near-Earth objects that are difficult to spot with ground-based telescopes. It will operate in infrared, which means it can detect dark asteroids that do not reflect much visible light, and it can look toward the direction of the sun, where objects like the Chelyabinsk asteroid hide. The goal is to find 65% of the remaining hazardous asteroid population within 5 years of operation and 90% within a decade. And then there is the deflection side. In September of 2022, NASA intentionally crashed its DART spacecraft into a small asteroid called Dimorphos to test whether a kinetic impact could change an asteroid's trajectory. It worked. The impact not only altered Dimorphos's orbit around its partner asteroid Didymos, but new research published just this month in Science Advances confirmed that it also slightly changed the path of the entire asteroid pair around the Sun. That was a historic first. Humanity demonstrated, for the first time ever, that we can alter the trajectory of a celestial object. That is no longer science fiction. But detection has to come first. You cannot deflect what you cannot see, and right now, we cannot see most of them. Coming back to Vancouver, Professor Bowley from UBC pointed out something else that is important. He said we are now at a point where so many satellites are orbiting Earth that they are re-entering the atmosphere at a rate of a few per day. Some of those re-entries can produce flashes and booms similar to what a natural meteor creates. So in the future, events like this may happen more frequently, and distinguishing between a natural bolide and a piece of space junk will become increasingly challenging. As for the fragments of the Vancouver meteor, scientists believe it likely broke apart into small pieces before reaching the ground, with debris probably landing somewhere in the North Shore Mountains north of Coquitlam. Bowley said that if fragments did survive, they would have a distinctive fusion crust, a layer that has been melted by the intense heat of atmospheric entry. But he cautioned that finding them in that densely wooded, mountainous terrain will be extremely difficult. He also warned that hikers who think they have found a meteorite should be careful, because chemical weathering on regular rocks can sometimes create a surface that looks like fusion crust but is not. What struck me most about this whole event is the reaction of people on the ground. Thousands of people across 2 countries heard and felt this thing, and for several minutes, nobody knew what it was. Some thought it was an earthquake. Some thought it was an explosion. Some thought it was a military attack. In a world where tensions are high and uncertainty seems to be everywhere, a random rock from space can trigger genuine fear across an entire region in a matter of seconds. And that is the point scientists are trying to make. These events are real. They happen constantly. Most of the time, the objects are small and burn up harmlessly. But statistically, it is not a question of if a larger one will hit a populated area. It is a question of when. The Chelyabinsk event happened only 13 years ago. Before that, scientists estimated that an airburst of that magnitude happens roughly once every 60 years. That means we might get lucky for decades, or we might not. The University of British Columbia's Aaron Bowley put it in terms that really resonated with me. He said this is a reminder that we are basically a spaceship going through space, and in our solar system there are billions of these objects. Most of them are small, but analyzing which ones are big enough to pose a genuine threat to Earth is something we need to be aware of. The Vancouver bolide was a wake-up call, not because it was dangerous, but because it showed us, in the most visceral, personal way possible, that things are falling from the sky all the time. The next one to explode over a city might be small and harmless like this one, or it might not be. And right now, we would not know the difference until it was already too late. And there is one more thing I want to leave you with. In April of 2029, an asteroid called Apophis, named after the Egyptian god of chaos and darkness, will pass so close to Earth that it will fly inside the orbit of our geostationary satellites. It will be close enough to see with the naked eye from parts of Europe, Asia, and Africa. Scientists have confirmed it will not hit us, but its close pass was enough for the United Nations to designate 2029 as the International Year of Asteroid Awareness and Planetary Defense. That tells you everything you need to know about how seriously the global scientific community is taking this. We live on a tiny rock hurtling through a solar system filled with billions of other rocks. Most of them will never come near us, but some will. And when they do, the difference between a harmless light show and a catastrophe comes down to size, speed, and whether anyone saw it coming. The people of Vancouver got a dramatic reminder of that on March 3rd. The people of Chelyabinsk learned it the hard way 13 years ago. The question is whether the rest of the world will pay attention before the next one hits. Stay safe, stay curious, and I will see you in the next one.